Hi everyone, it's Miss Brenner. Today I just wanted to talk to you about writing your concession. So, you've already gotten your thesis out of the way, which means that you have determined your topic, your stance, and the three prongs of support that you will use to argue your topic. Now, since that's taken care of, you need to start considering what the opposing argument has to hold against your argument about the topic you've chosen. So, with that in mind, you need to first introduce the opposing argument within your concession. So, introducing the opposing argument, there are a couple different ways that you can do this. I've given you some examples here on this worksheet. It is often argued that, it is true that, opposing views claim. All of these are reasonable ways to introduce the opposing argument. So for my example, since my thesis has to do with Mountain Dew and Mellow Yellow, I said that the opposing views claim that Mellow Yellow is a better soft drink than Mountain Dew because Mellow Yellow costs less than Mountain Dew. The opposing side also points out that when comparing 20-ounce bottles, Mellow Yellow contains fewer calories. So I introduced the opposing argument, which is that Mellow Yellow is better than Mountain Dew. So after I've introduced what the opposing argument is, I need to acknowledge that the opposing argument has valid viewpoints. It's not an argument if there are no valid points for the opposing side. So, different ways you can acknowledge the valid parts of the opposing argument is through saying things like admittedly, some statement, certainly, of course, one cannot deny that, at the same time. So, for my example, I used admittedly. I said, admittedly, one who was on a diet could argue that Mellow Yellow is a better option since it contains fewer calories and tastes similar to Mountain Dew. So, now that I have introduced the argument that Mellow Yellow is better than Mountain Dew and given the valid parts, I need to counter their claims. Since I am still very dedicated to my opinion that Mountain Dew is better than Mellow Yellow, and I've already acknowledged that there's an argument here and they have valid points, I still need to try and persuade my audience that Mountain Dew is better than Mellow Yellow. With this in mind, I'm going to say things like although, even though, despite, but. So, for my example, I said, although Mellow Yellow lovers may have valid reasoning for their attachment to this sweet beverage, one must ask if the fewer calories saved are worth the sacrifice made in palatability of the soft drink. Palatability is just a fancy word for it tastes good. Or it doesn't taste good. In a blind taste test, consumers repeatedly chose the taste of Mountain Dew over that of Mellow Yellow. So, with this, you need to then conclude your argument. So, I don't want to see you say things like, let me just throw facts at my audience. Your concession should not be structured like Mountain Dew is better tasting and comes in more varieties than Mellow Yellow. Mellow Yellow is less expensive. Mountain Dew is more widely available in stores. Well, it doesn't really tell me what the opposing argument is or the valid parts of that opposing argument in a way that's really reasonable or clear to my audience. So these are things that we need to keep in mind when we're writing our concession. So I went on to write a full-blown concession for you as an example. Here's my thesis statement at the top. Like we said before, it's about Mountain Dew and how it's better than Mellow Yellow. I go on to introduce, just like I showed you up top. I acknowledge valid parts by pointing out that it costs less than Mountain Dew, and as a cheaper alternative, it also contains fewer calories than Mountain Dew and has a similar taste. It is true that one who is on a diet could easily argue that Mellow Yellow is a superior option. I then go on to counter that and point out that is it reasonable to pick something that has fewer calories if it doesn't taste as good, which is mostly my opinion. And then I go on to point out that I have some factual reason why it's my opinion by saying that in blind taste tests, consumers repeatedly chose the taste of Mountain Dew over Mellow Yellow. So, after giving some counter argument, I then conclude my argument in conclusion, although Mellow Yellow may have some flattering features such as calorie count and price, it simply cannot do the do in comparison to the original caffeinated citrus soda, Mountain Dew. So, I hope this example helped. It is available on the Google Classroom along with these different examples of how you can introduce, you can acknowledge valid parts, and then counter their argument. Alright, I'll see you guys around. Bye!